Okay, so today basically, I don't think we're gonna have a whole lot of time to really get into course material. We might have like 20 or 30 minutes at the end of class to talk a little bit about philosophy and where we're going. But I'd really like to get through the syllabus, which shouldn't take that long, and then look at the Blackboard website and just sort of navigate that a little bit. And after that, take any questions, Q&A that you guys might have. And like I said, maybe have 20 or 30 minutes to get a little bit of lecture in and maybe get out a little bit early. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, let me go ahead and I'm going to share. Oh, I have the wrong syllabus open. My bad. Give me just a second here. Hang tight. I'm going to open my open the right file. My other class open here. Let's see. Spring 2021 intro. Wage downtown. Okay. All right, here we go. Now we're ready to go. All right, so this is available on Blackboard, and we'll look at Blackboard in a second. So I'll show you where you can find it if you haven't been on the website yet. But obviously, because of the president, the university president, we're here on Zoom. I don't like this, honestly. I really would not have signed up for this if I had a choice. I asked for a face-to-face. Some people think I'm crazy, but I don't know. I need to get out of the house every once in a while. So hopefully by February we will be on campus, and there's a location, room A405. But I've been told to basically await further instruction. But as of now, we're going to be through Zoom until February. So this week and I guess next also. The textbooks, okay, you're not going to need to get the first textbook probably until we're on campus. So like you've got at least a week or two. But I'm going to stop sharing the screen so you can see a little bit bigger here. So basically, this is the first one you need to get a hold of. It's Plato's Symposium. You don't necessarily have to get this exact copy if you want to find, if you find another edition, and you don't mind dealing with different page numbers and a different translation, then I guess that's fine. But you're going to need this. Like I said, this is the first one you need to get, and you're going to need it probably in the next week or so, a couple weeks. The next one is Descartes, Rene Descartes. This is what the cover looks like. Meditations on First Philosophy. You could probably wait for at least a month before we get to this. That's the next thing we're gonna move on to. And then this is probably not till towards the end of the semester, probably like March or April. We'll start on Sartre, Existentialism as a Humanism. So that's what all the books look like, and they're all fairly inexpensive. There are a couple of other readings, but they're available on the Blackboard website, and I'll show you those in a second once we get to that part. But basically, they're listed there on the syllabus. And again, if you find different versions, knock yourself out. You might find some for free on the internet. But again, if you get a different version, don't get mad at me that you're reading, when I'm reading quotes, maybe the translation is slightly different and it's not as easy to reference it with the page numbers. But, you can save yourself some money, but keep that in mind. All this other stuff, this course description, learning objectives, let's go ahead and just skip that. That's just kind of generic stuff you could read later if you want. Most of it or some of it might not even make sense till we get into the actual course material. But here's something. This is the pertinent stuff, the grades. So how are your final grades determined? All the grades are determined through your writing assignments. So basically for this course, all there are 4 essays, and the first 3 are worth not quite as much. So the first 3 papers are 20% of your final score, and the fourth paper, the final paper, is 40%. So 20, 20, 20, and 40, right, for a total of 100%. There's also some extra credit opportunities, which we'll get to. They're at the bottom of the syllabus For attendance, I took attendance just now. In fact, I think Felix just got here. Let me make sure I get him on the roster. Did Chris show up? Chris, Jimenez, Ethan, Renato Chapa, or Jacob? If any of y'all are there, chime in or just type your name.
I'm here.
Who's that? Who's speaking?
I'm here.
Oh, Jacob?
Yeah, I'm here.
Jacob,
yeah, I couldn't fix my audio earlier, but I was able to get it running again. So
right. Is Renato, is he here?
I'm not here.
There's two Renatos. Is Renato Chapa? Is he here? I got Cavazos. Cavazos I got. But is Chapa here? No? No Chapa? How about Ethan?
Yeah, I'm here.
Ethan's here? All right. And Chris Jimenez is still not here? Okay. All right. Well, all right. So I'm only missing 2 students. All right. That's fine. Not bad for the first day. Sometimes there's like 4 or 5 people missing. Let's get back to the syllabus. Sorry. So attendance, you basically you kind of get 3 freebies. I don't really care if you missed up to 3 classes. Once you start missing 4 or more, this might start to lower your grade. For one, you're not going to do as good in your papers because you probably won't be able to engage with the material as well. But after you have like a bunch of absences, I have to start taking points off your final grade for excessive absences. I mean, of course, if there are special situations, usually we can work around it, but that's sort of my basic policy. Plagiarism, I basically have a no tolerance policy for it. If I catch you plagiarizing, you get an F. Okay, and this is the thing too with the papers. We'll talk more about the papers if you want to. We maybe can spend a whole class on it, or at least part of a class talking about the papers before we get to the first assignment. But they're basically going to be argumentative essays. They're not going to be research papers. So you really shouldn't have to go on the internet looking for outside material. I find a lot of students, so many students, their strategy on these papers is they don't come to class, or if they do, they don't pay attention. They just they don't really do the readings, and they just wait till the papers due, and maybe the night before they go on the internet and just Google articles about the philosopher and just copy and paste stuff, and then they might paraphrase and change some of the wording slightly, but it's basically some garbled explanation they found online, and it's pretty obvious when they do this, and it's one of my pet peeves. So don't do that. Do the readings, come to class, try to engage the material. Sometimes it's not so easy, but college ain't supposed to be easy all the time. And then the writing is supposed to be your own reflections and your own arguments and your own. They don't have to be completely original, but you have to take a stance that's your own stance, and it has to be apparent that you've done some thinking on your own. Okay, and so to present an argument and a thesis and to back it up with good reasoning. Again, we'll talk more about details about that. What that's going to look like when we get closer to the due date, and maybe even spend some class time if there's enough interest. This schedule here, we're going to keep to it pretty good for the first few weeks, but after a while it might change up a bit because we might end up spending more time on some of the readings. Usually what happens is by the end of the semester, I have to cut Nietzsche short a little bit. We're not able to spend quite as much time on Nietzsche as I planned, but we'll probably get through all the readings, just maybe not quite as much of them. So take it with a grain of salt. I think so. The first paper, it looks like, is due the second week of February. That's about right. But who knows? We might push the due date back. It really all depends on how long it takes us to get through all this material. But for next class, I'm not really sure how far we're going to get into it. But for next class, you should start reading Plato's Apology, and you don't need any of the books for that yet, because this is one of the ones online. I've already got it posted up on the Blackboard website. Okay, last but not least, all this stuff at the bottom, I'm going to skip. This is just, I didn't even write it. I actually was required to put it on there. It's just sort of COVID stuff that the university wanted me to put on the syllabus. It's on every one of your syllabi from all your professors. So we won't look at that. But this extra credit stuff, this is unique to this class. There are extra credit opportunities. So besides the essays, that's really the main part of your grade. You also have the opportunity. There should be, I think, 3 chances, maybe more, depends on if, I don't know, something else comes up. But definitely, for sure, 3 chances to do this. I myself, I organize on my own time. I organize a philosophy reading discussion group, and we meet once a month. We meet on the 3rd Sunday of every month, and we've been meeting online since the pandemic started, so it's all online at this point. But it's every Sunday, the 3rd Sunday, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And we do 1 reading a month. This month we're doing Nietzsche's Daybreak, book 1. So if you want to attend one of those meetings, you get 5 extra points on your final grade, so half a letter grade. You can do this twice for up to 10 points. I mean, you can come to all 3 meetings if you like. You're welcome to join in, but you can only do this twice for up to 10 points for a full letter grade, which I think is pretty generous. So you can earn up to 10 points. So there's a couple links here that you can follow. One goes to the Facebook group, and there's also a meetup group if you don't use Facebook, and that'll give you some more information about the events, and you can find the reading. There's links to the readings and sort of the date and the time and all that. But that's pretty much it when it comes to the syllabus. I did skip a bit, but that's all the really super important stuff. Attendance policy, grades, schedule, extra credit. But let's go ahead now and move on to Blackboard, and I'll just very quickly show you what's up there right now and kind of navigate the site a little bit, and then I'll open the floor for any questions you guys might have after that. So I know I was having trouble logging into Blackboard earlier. Let's hope I'm not having the same problem now. And some of my other students said they were having the same problem. So I found that for some reason, if I use Internet Explorer, it fixed the problem. I was able to log in on Internet Explorer, but I wasn't able to log in using Google Chrome. So let's hope it works again this time. Looks like it's working. Okay, so let's click on our class. Which one? Oh, this one on the top here. Let me change this. This is the instructor mode, so let me turn it on student view. So this is basically what it's going to look like for you. Most of you probably already been on here to kind of look around. I'm not going to use the announcements much. Maybe I might if we end up staying on Zoom longer than we planned, but I usually don't use the announcements much. There's not much on the home page. If you click on the Syllabus tab, that's up. My browser's going a little slow right now. So there's the syllabus. Oh, and there's a link to the extra credit stuff. That's on the syllabus as well, but this is, I guess, maybe more convenient to click on the links. And there's, kind of more stuff about me if you're curious. I need to edit this, actually. Sorry. Give me a moment. Those office hours are old. That's from last semester. I'm not doing the virtual office hours anymore. I can do them by appointment, but okay. Sorry about that. All right, so the other tab, really, I mean, that's under syllabus, right? So there's a few things there. There's just kind of stuff about me, links to the extra credit, and the syllabus itself. Course content is really where most of the material is going to be. Let me go back to student view, sorry. So you're going to see the link to our Zoom meeting. Hopefully that won't be up for much longer. Hopefully we'll be on campus soon. There's another folder here that has guidelines that'll give you some information, a little bit more direction on writing your essays. Let's go ahead and click on that. So there's a YouTube video that I found that I thought pretty useful, pretty helpful. There's also a link to this website, Guidelines for Writing a Philosophy Paper. That website is pretty thorough. I mean, I found a few, but this one is like, it almost has too much information. It's like every question you would ever need to know about writing a philosophy paper and more, and a lot of good examples and applying the advice and giving you a few examples of how it would work in an actual passage of a paper. This is a sample essay that I posted from one of my students, an old student from San Jacinto. It's quite old, like maybe, heck, it's been years since I worked there, at least 5 years. But it covers a topic that we're not even a reading that we're not even going to do. But that's actually it's fine. You can read the paper and pretty much follow it, I think, more or less. It's about Plato, one of Plato's dialogues called Crito, and I picked it not because it's the greatest paper I've ever read from a student. I've had better, but I picked it because it was really kind of very simple to the point. It wasn't like extravagant, but it was really decent, very well read, very well written, well organized, and kind of like the bare minimum for what you would need to do to get an A+ paper. So again, like I said, I've had more creative, but this I think is something that anybody who tries really hard, anybody could really write this, or you should be able to write this if you take an English 1301 and you know how to write an argumentative essay. By the end of the semester, anybody should be able to write a good paper like this one. So I just I picked a kind of a target paper, I suppose, is a good way to look at it. So we click back on the course content. There's other folders. So each of the different philosophers has their own folder. There's not a lot in some of these folders. If you click on Plato, there's a link there to the first reading. So that's where you'll find Plato's Apology. And I guess for next class, I would probably get at least the first half of that read. At least read the first 10 or so pages, maybe 10 or 15 pages. For next class, although we might not get that deep into it, we'll at least get started on it, so you should too. There's also a link here for the first essay. I think the due date is almost certainly wrong for this first essay. I just copied this from a previous semester, and so I need to probably fix it. So if you don't email me, hey, it says the essay was due last year in November. Okay, yes, I know. I'm sorry. I will fix it. And in fact, even the due date on the syllabus is probably not right. We'll probably end up changing it. It might be even due later than that. I think it said the 8th or the 10th or something is when it's going to be at least assigned. So the other folders don't have hardly anything in them, I don't think. Like Descartes, all you have is the Dropbox for the assignment. Same thing for Sartre. In the Nietzsche folder, though, there are the readings, right? There's a few handouts here of readings, but that's way ahead of us. And you can even see the paper, the final paper is up. But yeah, if you want to read it, go ahead. But you probably won't even really get it until we start getting into some of these readings. But that's pretty much it. Oh, I guess there's a couple more things real quick. There's a discussion board that I really just put this up for you guys. I'm not going to be active on it. It's not a course requirement, but it's sort of just so students can get in touch with each other. If you need to communicate with each other, this is one way you can do that. I know some people like to get a group me going, and I guess that's fine too. But if you want, there's a discussion board here as well. And also, last but not least, you can keep track of your grades here. All of the assignments will be submitted online on Blackboard. I'll be grading them on Blackboard. And so make sure if you submit something, give it a week or two for me to grade it. But if you don't see a grade, make sure it got submitted correctly. I find a lot of students, they think they submitted something and they didn't. A lot of times when they turn something in, the way it works is like a two-step process. You have to pick your file, wait for it to scan, and sort of I think it scans it, and then you have to hit upload and then confirm. So I think a lot of people don't do that last step when they turn it in. They forget to hit that confirmation button, and so they're like, "I turned it in, I swear," and they didn't. So it happens. I wouldn't say it happens a lot, but it happens enough to concern me, and at least to mention. Somebody said in the chat box that they found the first book for $11 on Amazon. Yeah, I think that's how much it's going. Like for brand new too. Like it's brand new for I think $9.99. If you have Amazon Prime, it's like $10, or maybe $11. Um, but you got to pay shipping. But I bet if you find it used, you could probably get way even cheaper than that. But all the books are pretty inexpensive. I picked I picked the really cheap sort of paperbacks so that you could save some money. Okay, well, that's basically it. Like that's all I wanted to say about the syllabus, and we looked at the Blackboard website. I guess I'll just pause here for a moment in case anybody has any questions. No, it doesn't look like it. Okay, well, if something comes up, don't be shy. Let me know. I'm gonna go ahead and share. I've got a PowerPoint, kind of a very basic PowerPoint that I just got started. Oh, this reminds me too. Um, Tatiana's asking, will we start meeting on February 1st? I think it's the 2nd or something. Hold on, let me look at my calendar. No, you're right, the 1st. It's the 1st. So yeah, we're gonna hopefully we'll meet on the 1st, but we might have to push it back another week. It all depends on what they tell us. So we'll see. But this reminds me too. This first slide, I well, somebody's asking also. I think it's Tatiana. If we don't show up, can we still join online? I'm not really sure because I haven't been to our classroom. If that's even a thing I could do or would be easy for me to do, to simultaneously teach on campus and also Zoom at the same time. Uh, I'm not sure I could do that. I'd have to wait until I actually got into the classroom and I saw the logistics before I said yes or no to that. But I don't know. I'm assuming that it's early enough in the semester that if you want an online, like just an online class, you can probably switch. I'm sure you could drop this class and just take an online intro to philosophy if that's what you want to do. But yeah, as far as I know, it's just gonna be face to face. It might be Zoom all semester. I hope not. I want to go. I want to get out of my house at least a couple times a week for some reason. But anyway, but this email it reminds me, you can go, you can go ahead and contact me through my UHD email address. That should work. But all that does is I forward all my messages to my Gmail. And occasionally, it's pretty rare, but it has happened. Students will get spammed. Like it forwards, but then it ends up in my spam for some reason, or promotions or some weird thing, and I don't get to it. So if you email me and it takes me like a few days to respond, you might just try directly emailing me through this Gmail address. So you might want to go ahead and jot this down, right? j.travis.ross@gmail, just sort of an emergency thing. All right, so let's get into the course material. We're not going to get all that far today. We've got a lot more time, though, than I thought we would. We've still got about 40 or 45 minutes to kill, so that's good. I think we might actually get out a little early today, which is nice. I have just some basics I want to cover. I want to talk about how you go about defining philosophy, if that's even a thing, possible ways of understanding philosophy, and a few things about arguments and what I mean by arguments, and some other stuff about what we're going to be doing in this class. But once we get through all that, I guess we can go, and then when we come back next time, we'll finish up. We'll probably do some more stuff on arguments and determining what a good argument, bad argument is. We'll talk a little bit about Plato and what's known as Plato's allegory of the cave. Don't worry about that right now, but we'll get into that next class. And if we have time on Monday, we'll even get started on the reading. We'll get started on that first reading that's on Blackboard, right? The apology, or sorry, yeah, the apology. Oh yeah, Ronnie's asking week 1, Plato's Allegory. Is that a book or an online thing? I'll just cover it in class. It's in fact I just referred to it just now. The Allegory of the Cave is what it's called. So I'm just going to lecture on it. I doubt we'll get to it today. I think we just won't have time. But what we will get to is sort of this question, right? What is philosophy? And it's a question I'm going to kind of leave unanswered, really, because it's a hard question to answer. Most classes you take, or at least a lot of them, I know like professors will start their semester by giving you a definition, like what is the official definition of biology or psychology? And usually it's kind of easy for them to do because there's an industry standard, for lack of a better word. There's a definition that's more or less agreed upon by the discipline, by those who practice the discipline. But that's not the case for philosophy, and there's a lot of reasons for this. There's historical reasons, maybe just the nature of philosophy itself makes it hard to define. It used to mean something much different back when the term itself was invented. And I guess maybe that's one place we could start, is the origin of the word. The origin, it goes back to the ancient Greek term phileia and sophis, right? So phileia is love and sophis is wisdom in ancient Greek. So literally, philosophy is love of wisdom, is what it literally translates as. But this was something much broader when you were talking about philosophy in ancient Greece, you were referring to a much broader spectrum of things than we would be referring to today. So as I said, there are historical reasons why it's kind of hard to really give a clear definition that's uncontroversial of philosophy. But it was what we call, I mentioned biology, chemistry, psychology. All of these subjects at one time were considered philosophy. You might have called somebody a natural philosopher if they were studying nature, and what we might call a biologist today would be a natural philosopher. Or maybe a physicist you could call a natural philosopher. But since the scientific revolution, at least since about the 1600s, 1700s, that's when science started. Modern science is birthed, and all these disciplines sort of break off into their own separate fields on their own. And so now what we refer to as philosophy is slightly different. It doesn't have that broad general meaning that it once did to the ancient Greeks when they first coined the phrase, love of wisdom. So as I said, it's really hard for me to tell you what philosophy is in any way that's not going to upset at least some philosophers, who are going to go, that's not what philosophy is. This is what, there'll be arguments. But for the most part, I think a lot of them agree on what it isn't. And so let's talk about some of the sort of popular misconceptions of philosophy that perhaps we should dispel right at the get-go. One thing that I want to make clear is that philosophy is not bullshit. So pardon my language, but that's a common conception of philosophy, which I don't know where it comes from, but I guess the idea is that you just sort of make stuff up and it doesn't really matter whether or not you can prove it. It's just claims that are unfounded. I think that, like, ironically, even though like I said just a moment ago, that most of the sciences, in fact, I think all the sciences, I can't think of one exception, but almost all the sciences, at least almost all of them, if not all of them, have an origin in philosophy. Ironically, you get a lot of pushback from scientists against philosophy. I know, for instance, there's a guy, maybe some people here are familiar with Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's a public scientist, astrophysicist. He's a real nice guy. I kind of like listening to some of his talks, but he'll talk about philosophy this way, like it's just useless, and the older stuff was good, but now it's just all a bunch of BS. And I remember when I used to tell people when I was studying philosophy as an undergraduate, whenever I would tell people this, whenever people would ask me what I was studying and I told them philosophy, usually they would be like, well, why would you do that? What are you going to do with a philosophy degree? That was probably the more popular response. And I would usually be kind of a smart ass. I'd, reply with something smart alecky. But another very common response besides that was, oh, so you just bullshit all the time, right? And again, I guess so there's this sort of caricature of philosophy is just, a bunch of like stoners sitting around smoking pot in like togas, this is like the nature of the universe. And this is, so um, that's not philosophy. And so I think this also stems from another popular misconception of philosophy, that it's just an opinion. It's just a matter of opinion. And the way that I think a lot of people, myself included, a lot of people use that word philosophy in their sort of more common casual speech. They use the word philosophy very interchangeably with the word opinion. It might as well be opinion or, my view of things, my viewpoint. That's just my philosophy. That's just your philosophy. And there's nothing particularly wrong with, I guess, using the word that way. But I guess it gives you this conception that when you take this class, all you're going to be doing is reading papers about people's opinions and viewpoints with nothing to back it up. That people are just spewing their opinions into the air without any sort of foundation to back it up. And so that's one thing. I guess this is maybe a good place to start. If we want to define philosophy, we maybe find something that's common amongst all philosophers. And I would say that one thing they all share is that they all use arguments to back up their conclusions. They're making assertions. They have these assertions that they want to defend, and they want to convince you that their assertions are correct. But they don't just simply state what they believe. It's not just a statement of opinions. It involves, like I said, arguments. You've got to back it up with a good argument. And I need to be clear about what exactly it is that I mean by argument, because that's another word I think that we use very casually, and sometimes what we really mean by argument is a little different than what I have in mind right now when I'm talking about arguments. Like for instance, you might say that you got into an argument with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever, okay? Sometimes you might actually get into technically an argument, but usually a lot of times you're not really technically arguing. If you want to get technical, you probably are just disagreeing. You have a disagreement. One person believes something, the other person believes something else. At least from my experience, that's how it is. Occasionally, you get some couples that actually do this. They present reasons. They present some evidence to support their views. But a lot of times it's just they're yelling at each other, right? You've got, like let's just imagine maybe the girlfriend is, mad at the boyfriend, and she tells him that, you don't love me and you don't care about me, and he says, what do you mean, sweetie? Of course I love you. Of course I care about you. No, you don't. Yes, I do. No, you don't. Yes, I do. So there's just this back and forth, right? You got one person who's asserting their view and the other person that's denying it. And no one's really arguing. No one's really presenting any evidence for their position. Nobody's presenting any compelling reasons for why one should believe them. So an argument, when we talk about arguments in philosophy, and this is probably true in most academic disciplines, when you hear your professor or some fancy intellectual on TV talk about arguments, they're usually talking about this. It involves some evidence, some reasons, really is a better way to look at it, is reasoning, something we might call a premise. You're presenting a premise or maybe a set of premises. Here, all these are true. Here, these things are true. These premises are true. You accept them. So therefore, this conclusion must follow. Okay, so an argument's always going to involve this. It's always going to have some premise or premises. And those premises are supposed to establish the truth of some conclusion. We're supposed to be able to draw some conclusion from those premises. So when we go back to the example of the lover's quarrel, and the girlfriend is saying, you don't love me, and the boyfriend says, yes, I do. Maybe the boyfriend could provide an argument, or the girlfriend. She could say, I don't know, let me think. You don't pay attention to me. You never say I'm pretty. You hang out with your friends more than me. So she's giving reasons. Therefore, you don't care about me. You don't love me. Okay. Or he could say, to defend against her, he could say, well, of course I love you. I bought you a very thoughtful birthday present. I remembered our anniversary and I took you out for dinner. I called you every night when I was out of town to check in on you. So therefore, I loved you. Now, I'm not saying whether or not either one of their arguments are good, but at least they're arguments, right? They're presenting reasons, premises, in order to support their conclusion. Okay. And in this class, I think one of our main tasks this semester, studying philosophy, is we want to try to get really good as we can in one semester, at determining whether or not we have good arguments or not. When we're looking at a philosophical text, for instance, we're going to find a lot of arguments. We're going to find philosophers trying to support certain conclusions, and they're going to provide us with evidence, reasons, and all these premises to back up their conclusion. And so, to me, the most important thing in this class is not remembering every fact about Plato or every fact there is to know about Descartes or Sartre or whatever. I'm not going to lose sleep at night if 5 or 6 months after the semester's over, you can't remember the definition of Plato's forms. But what I want you to sort of pick up on and try to get good at is the ability to think very critically about a text, to understand, what reasons are being presented in this text to support this conclusion, and are they good reasons, right? And so, how do we do this? How do we get started analyzing an argument and determining whether or not the argument involves good reasoning or bad reasoning? Well, today we'll get started on that. I'll leave most of this for next time. I told you we'd get out of here earlier, but I want to give a few examples, and I want to talk about sort of the basics, the two most important things, the two sort of basic points that you really want to focus on when you're looking at an argument. You're trying to determine whether or not it's a good or a bad argument. And these two concepts, these two notions that I'm speaking of, are validity and soundness. The two properties, the two things you're looking for in an argument are, one, whether or not the argument is valid, and then two, whether or not the argument is sound. So we need to explore these concepts. What does it mean to be valid? What does it mean to be sound? And then we'll look at an argument or two. Maybe we can just go back to the boyfriend-girlfriend argument, and we can sort of apply this technique, at least to get started. We'll see how long that takes. And then maybe we'll do a couple more arguments. So let's look at validity first. So in order for an argument to be valid, what that means is that the premises, whatever they happen to be, that the premises in fact establish the truth of the conclusion. In other words, there's actually a logical connection between the premises and the conclusion, such that if the premises are true, the conclusion would have to be true, right? If the premises were true, it's logically entailed that the conclusion would have to follow. So it's impossible for the premises to be true and the conclusion to be false, okay? So again, validity is basically, there's a connection, right? The premises, in fact, do establish the conclusion. If the premises are true, the conclusion would have to be true. So we could ask ourselves, in reference to, the example I gave of the two people, the boyfriend-girlfriend argument, we could ask ourselves, is that argument that the boyfriend gave, is that a valid argument? In other words, if what he says is true, if he, what I say, bought her a thoughtful birthday present, he took her out on their anniversary for a nice dinner, he called her every night when he was out of town to check in on her. Um, is it possible that all those things are true and then it's also true that he doesn't love her? Is it possible that he did all those things but still he doesn't love her? What do you think? Anybody have any feelings about this? You think that's a valid argument that if a guy calls his girlfriend when he's out of town, buys her a birthday present, and takes her out on an anniversary for dinner, he does those three things, then for sure, guaranteed, no matter what, he loves her? I like
Nope.
Ali's response. He says, depends on how you define love. Yeah, I guess it does, but somebody else was about to jump in. What were you going to say?
I don't believe that that defines what love is.
Well, let's try to make it easier on the guy. I mean, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, it's not the definition of love. Like, if you went to the dictionary and looked it up, I'm sure there'd be all sorts of definitions. And we talk about love in so many different ways. You could say, oh, I love my pet, and I love, I love ice cream or whatever, and I love my mom, and I love, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, whatever. And you might kind of have a different sense of that. So the definition, I'll grant you, of love might be sort of mysterious. And it certainly, the definition certainly has nothing to do. It's not like you're going to look at the dictionary and it says love is calling your girlfriend when you're out of town, buying her birthday presents. That doesn't define love. But I guess to be fair to the guy, doesn't it show that he at least might have love for her? Now, I'm just trying to defend. I'm not saying that that's a valid argument, but so Ronnie says, what other reason would he act? He would act that way because he does. So Ronnie's saying, well, why else would he do all that stuff? He wouldn't do all that stuff if he didn't love her.
Like
What do y'all
logically,
think?
like logically, his actions are showing that he does, but I think that's just logically thinking about it.
Right. Sometimes people do stuff and it's not really obvious. I mean, no one can read the guy's mind, I guess. So I think the best we could say is that if he did all those things, it makes him look good. Let's say he didn't do all that stuff, like he forgot her birthday and he forgot their anniversary and he didn't call her at all when he was out of town, like he was gone for a week and didn't call her the whole time, then that would be pretty bad. That would look pretty bad. But as you said, like, well, what if he did all those things? Does that guarantee? Maybe he doesn't really love her. Maybe he's just doing those things because he just kind of likes her and he just wants to keep her around as like a booty call or something. I don't know. And he wants to make her think that he loves her. And he's like, I guess I'll call her every time I'm out of town and I'll do all this stuff. But I don't really love her. I'll just make her think that I do, right? I mean, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I hope that he really cares about her, but it is possible that he's a creepy, sleazy guy like that. Maybe. You want to say something, Jacob? Or?
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm just listening in. I guess that you got whoever said that, where he's like maybe just doesn't act like that. Where it's like he's just acting like that to look good. Maybe, yeah. I mean, it's a very complex thing.
Right.
You don't know what's going on. Maybe he just wants to put a nice face on it and just set a trap up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's I guess kind of what I just said. But yeah, I'm with you on that. Maybe this is a too complicated of an example, but I would say honestly, it's probably not really a valid argument, right? It's not enough. It doesn't. If she's a skeptic about it, let's just say though, okay, let's just to keep things simple, I'm gonna just say, like, what if we lived in a universe where there were like laws? You know how like there's laws of physics. Let's just say there's laws of love, just like there are laws of physics, so that it's physically impossible for a man to call a woman every night when he's out of town and check in on her if he doesn't love her. And it's physically impossible to buy her a nice gift on her birthday if he doesn't love her. And it's physically impossible for him to, what else did I say? take her out on their anniversary if he doesn't love her. Like, let's just say that's the case, and that we actually have a valid argument here, that his premises guarantee his conclusion. Boy, babe. Okay, I think I'm back.